AGI, if anybody can even describe what it is, but being able to go to the shops, get my stuff, put it in the fridge, chuck it in the bin when it's off, make me a sandwich, mow the lawn, pick up my kids from school. Like, this stuff's definitely coming in my lifetime. I'm absolutely convinced.
I don't think it will take people's jobs, but it will change people's jobs.
My dad would say, I'd rather be in a driverless car than driving with you. Hi, welcome back. I am Duncan Kreeger. This is Tab University, and I am here with Stellios Constantinidis. And I'm very happy with my pronunciation. Is that good?
That was spot on.
Good. Rarely am I as excited to host a podcast as I am with you, Stellios, because I think in the 5 minutes that we've spoken so far, I can see we have a lot in common, share a lot of the same views, and I think the theme of this podcast, just for everybody's benefit, is that you're going to meet Stellios at the same time as I am. So welcome. Maybe just give me a 2 or 3 minute bit of introduction of who you are and how you've ended up on Tab University's podcast.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here. So I'm an AI engineer. I build AI systems. My background is electrical engineering and computer science, and effectively, I currently run AI at Qube, and we can talk a bit about it, what Qube does. But effectively, I got into the industry just at the time that language models were becoming a thing.
Yeah.
So that was a few years before ChatGPT.
So you were talking about AI before everyone else was talking about AI.
Well, people were still talking about AI at the point, but at that time, but it wasn't the mania that it is today.
Yeah.
People were still going in 2018 that, this is coming,
Yeah.
and well, now it's it's come, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in your world they were, but I think, my perception is that a lot of people still don't know it's coming or haven't cottoned on to the fact it's coming. So to just tell us a bit about, you mentioned where you are at the moment. You're employed by a business. Tell me a bit about that business.
Yeah, so I run AI at Qube, and what Qube has basically done and continues to be doing is to make mortgages as easy as getting car insurance. So the mission of the business and what we're doing is enabling brokers and consumers to get mortgages with a single click. And there are two ways that we're making this happen. We're building all our tech. So I've built and run the AI systems at Qube. We license this technology to other lenders. So, for example, yesterday actually, Nottingham, the Building Society, announced the full market launch to the entire broker community with the origination platform that we've built, and which effectively enables one-day mortgages. And then there is a sister company, Empowered, which is effectively the first customer of Qube. So it's a mortgage lender. It does about 1 billion of lending a year, and it's in the resi space. And basically, it acts a bit of as a sandbox, as a proof of concept for all the tech that Qube built. So that means basically that over the last few years, we've been deploying AI systems live in the market, specialist AI systems live in production through Empowered. So
how many people are employed by that business?
I think we're about 75 or 80 right now.
And I guess some of those are doing regulated mortgages. And how much involvement do you have on the sort of product design, the pricing, marketing, sort of all the other things outside of AI?
Yeah, so I guess what's a bit unique about this business is that the person who runs product, the person who runs marketing, the person who runs ops, they're all data scientists. So, for example, the person who runs product, we were working together on some of the language models a few years ago, and then he moved on to product. So we do approach everything with a data science or AI perspective, every little task in the business.
And how much of that is you sort of creating your own AI, and how much of it is you leveraging the different language models and technology that's out there already?
Yeah, I guess it really depends on the task. Basically, if I had to answer that in one sentence, I'd say if it's a mission critical component of what you're doing, if it's something that's high stakes and you're deploying an AI system that's doing something critical in what you care about and something repeatable and something that happens at scale, this is where we're developing and where we've built our own AI systems. And I can go into more details, but effectively, you can use LLMs and more general AI in so many different parts of the business that it's actually counterproductive to be developing everywhere. Well, you want to be taking what works and using it very quickly and as much widely as possible across the business.
Yeah. Okay. Super interesting subject, I guess, for me personally. Hope it's as valuable for everybody else as well. I guess what I'd like to do is, obviously, we're a mortgage lender ourselves. We're not a regulated mortgage lender. We don't lend against people's primary principal residence. But the logic of automated lending predates any sort of AI. So one of the few qualifications I have was a regulated mortgage broker. And I remember keying on applications to Halifax and being able to get, in some cases, a mortgage offer pretty quickly through what wasn't called AVMs at the time, but through sort of automated valuations, pulling all sorts of data together, your credit search, and being able to give you a pretty quick stroke instant decision. And I think, I guess I've got a million questions, but I think one of the first questions is, what's the most obvious thing that you've been able to do that might have seemed challenging before, but now isn't really a big challenge at all?
Yeah, this is super interesting. There is an example of a problem that fits exactly this, which is document extraction.
Yeah.
So document extraction, just to add some context, is obviously a mortgage application can be super document heavy.
Yeah.
A person is applying for a mortgage. Depending on the lender's criteria, some might ask for 3 pay slips, they might ask for a passport, they might ask for 6 bank statements, lots of different documents. There are on average about 10 documents to 12 documents on a mortgage app. So this problem was actually the first problem that I was hired to solve in 2019. So at the time, just to add some more context, language models were becoming a thing. But they were not general purpose machines like they're now. What does general purpose mean? That you can do whatever you want on the LLM. So at the time, solving this it was an unsolved problem. How to extract information from pay slips, from bank statements, and actually from files that might be containing 3 bank statements, 6 pay slips. So what we did to solve this problem is we trained our own language models on mortgage documents, real mortgage documents.
As in criteria?
As in pay slips, bank statements.
So you trained it on all of the types of things that a lender would require?
Exactly. And why do you
give it as big a sample as possible?
Exactly. And this idea of the sample is really relevant because if you take pay slips, you have so many different formats and variations.
Sure.
So this is where the AI comes in and where you want to train your own models to tackle these problems.
Because you always want to get an answer that fits in a box, but you're trying to get that answer from 50 different types of pay slips. It's not just enough that you've got a pay slip, but it's who are you, what's your address, what's the net, what's the gross, what's your tax code, what's the date, what's the month it's relevant to, and they all say slightly different things.
Exactly. So as part of the process, you want to extract this information and then feed it into a decision system that will make a decision on the case. So basically, so this was an unsolved problem, and we've solved it using our own collection of specialist AI models since 2021, I would say. Now, these days, with ChatGPT, you can get very impressive results right away, but this is an interesting point to talk about, in the sense that the fact that ChatGPT can do something, and you can run it and you can get cool results and you can do a great demo, doesn't mean that you can just take ChatGPT for something as critical as extracting information from documents and just plug it into a production system.
As in, you can't rely on it. You can give it some sample and it can give you a good answer, but then when you throw more and more at it, you figure out what the inaccuracies are, or the...
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to have total control over what's going on. So an example here is that you don't have control, for example, over the training data.
Yeah.
When you're training your own language model, you know exactly the sample, as you've said.
Sure.
You know exactly the sample that went into the model. So you know effectively how the model will be thinking about the document.
It's not considering all these other things that aren't relevant, that it may think are relevant because it has the knowledge.
Exactly.
Let me ask you. Maybe this is going back a bit. I think I'm sort of an intermediate public user of these tools, and I find them fascinating. It literally baffles me that more people haven't caught on and don't use it. I don't use Google very much at all anymore. I kind of consult ChatGPT first and other models. What does building your own language model look like? Because that's, I guess, not using the tools that are widely available already. How do you go about starting? I guess super high level.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess a point to make is that building and training your own LLM, there are two ways to think of it. There is the way of thinking it as this Manhattan project scale of effort, which is what OpenAI is doing, which is what Google is doing, this is called pre-training. So you're trying to make a massive model that will need, an entire data center to run, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, to build. And at this process is what's called pre-training.
Yeah.
So this gives you basically a very capable generalist.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that.
Yeah.
This is you need the budget of NASA or there is a step after that though, which is post-training. So post-training means that you're taking now this capable general model and you're adapting it to the task that you care about. So effectively you're taking a generalist and you're making it into a specialist.
Yeah.
So the way we work is we're taking open source models, for example, from NVIDIA, from
Claude, Anthropic.
Yeah, from Meta. It's quite interesting now that almost just as a tangent, most of the best open models are Chinese. So it's China that's dominating this space. DeepSeek is the best example of this. So you're taking an open model, and what does an open model means? It means that you can run it on your own infrastructure, and without getting into too much detail, you can see its insides.
But it's an open model and it's already a generalist. So it's been through the pre-training.
Exactly.
And it's a good generalist that you can manipulate, which to me, I guess, means you're able to turn off thinking about these things that I don't want you to consider. And I want you to be a specialist in this subject. And I can help you to be a specialist in this subject by giving you loads of information you don't have. But at the same time, I can dial up or dial down things that I think may be relevant and things that may not be relevant.
Absolutely. I guess the control you have in terms of dialing things up or down just happens through the data that you'll feed it.
Yeah.
So it's not as controllable as a car where you have, you can turn up and there are no dials per se. So there is a kind of not magic, but it's an experimental process where you feed data and you see how it works, rather than going, okay, now I want to turn off the ability to translate from, let's say, English to French.
Okay, but is it then the sort of secret sauce? Is that in the instructions, in how you prompt it or how it's told to use the information that may or may not be relevant?
It's exactly that, and 90% of the time goes into preparing the instructions and preparing the data. So I can give you an example on that. So at Qube, we've effectively, since 2023, automated mortgages from the context of reading all documents, running all checks, using AI in the context of document extraction. So AI reads the information, does not make a decision. It's not AI who decides whether a person will get a mortgage or not. What we've done over the last 9 months is we've gone one step further, and we're now passing all the information to the AI, and let's say we're passing it to an LLM, and we're asking it to effectively underwrite the case in English. So based
on your lending policy, your criteria, all of your historic data that you've collected, and I guess loads of third-party data that typically wouldn't be considered by an underwriter or somebody assessing a case manually.
Absolutely. So the LLM takes all this information, and what we've done in order to build the training data for this is we got our underwriters and we got our domain experts. So the first element that you need to build your own, to train your own LLM, is domain expertise. So you need your underwriters and their experience.
You need to extract that and put it into the post-training.
Exactly. This is it, because the way it happens is you get the LLM to underwrite cases, and then you get underwriters to mark how well the LLM is doing. And the marking should be as detailed as possible. So you almost go like in exams at school. 1 point for picking this up, 2 points for picking this up, -2 if you missed this. And then all this information we feed back to the LLM. And it's effectively like an LLM playing against itself until it manages to score well on the underwriter scoring.
And how many cases need to be manually checked before you get confidence that it can do the job as well as them?
So, well, this depends and changes, but in the past, maybe you would need like tens of thousands. But going back to your point about the pre-training process, which gives you a strong generalist, now that the generalists are stronger and stronger, sometimes you can get by, depending on the task, maybe just by having 50 cases.
Fine. So what do you need a human underwriter to do now and in 12 months and in 24 months, in your view? Where can they actually add value?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so the way we've deployed, for example, this agent is a bit like self-driving cars, where I mean, in California they run fully on their own, but in mostly the car drives itself, and you have the hands on the wheel, and you're able to intervene when that's needed.
Yeah, but like you said, not anymore. I mean, Waymo's been doing it for a decent amount of time, and Elon Musk will crack it in no time at all. And you've got the old school of thought. My mum is firmly in this category where I'm never getting in a driverless car no matter how much you pay me. And my dad would say, I'd rather be in a driverless car than driving with you. And I think, the next generation's coming through. It will be weird when somebody shows up in the driver's seat thinking, who's that guy? And I don't feel comfortable, or girl, I don't feel comfortable sitting in the car with them. super quick when you look at how quickly this technology's developed. One thing I keep hearing about AI is not just how much better it's getting, but how much quicker compared to other revolutions. Like the Industrial Revolution took 100 years or tens of years to make a difference, whereas AI really is making an impact in days and months, let alone years. So
I think, just to jump on, I think this is something that I think about, just to go, might be a bit of a tangent, but it's not that technology is getting better, it's that which it is, but it's also that, like you've said, the rate of change is increasing. So what used to happen in the past in 30 years now is happening in 5 years. And that means that as people, I think, will just have to get, there are so many people who freak out with AI still and go, I have friends who don't want to use this. And I think this reaction of, oh my God, this is something so new and I don't want to think of. It's just something that we'll keep seeing more and more, just because how much things will be changing every year.
Say that again. You think you'll see more and more people scared to use it, or venturing into the unknown? Because I guess naturally I think the opposite, which is that I was looking this morning at my own ChatGPT, and my 11-year-old son last night was talking to it about Arsenal and football and comparing two players to one another, and they don't use Google, never have done, possibly will do. My personal opinion, I'll go on the record, say I think Google will win. I just personally believe from what I've read that they have the best team and are the most advanced. Large language models, I think, is really scratching the surface. It's unreal if you use it to your advantage, and I'm all about using tools to my advantage. I do remember my parents kind of having this notion of, don't use the internet, it's cheating, we've got encyclopedias on the top shelf and you should learn how to research stuff properly. Obviously that doesn't make sense, and I feel pretty sure that AI will be the same. Obviously there's some stubborn people, but I'm interested in this as well. Like, why do you think people are scared of it? Because they're not scared of the internet, and this is really just, in my view, like a evolution of the internet, really, somewhere you can get information really quickly that knows more than you do. Why do you think people are scared to use it?
I think in general it's the change. So I can give you an example. My partner is a director, so I've talked to a lot of people who work in film. And if you think of film, you have people who have, you've been making films in a specific way for 70 years. There have been new technologies like VFX, and there have been new ways you do things. But now with AI, I don't think it will take people's jobs, but it will 100% take people's jobs. It will change people's jobs.
Yeah. Oops.
It will change people's jobs.
Sure.
And I think, which is something that people can adapt, but I don't think it's very easy to be constantly adapting to new things, in the sense that you learn something, and from a human perspective, from the human element, when things are changing and there are new technologies all the time, I don't think it's from the perspective of the experience of a person to be learning this completely new technology and this new way of thinking, a new way of doing things every year.
I guess it's a personality thing, right? I mean, I've heard, I mentioned to you earlier, I listen to and watch a lot of this stuff because I'm super interested by it. I believe it's the future, and I want to be involved. But I've heard the question posed, like, why has coding caught on so quickly as a good use case for AI? And the answer makes sense to me, which is that if you're coding, you're used to using technology to your advantage, and therefore, why wouldn't you adopt this new technology and use it to your advantage? That's a kind of easy move into using AI. Whereas if you're an artist and you draw, you've always used a pencil and paper, and therefore using some completely different device and using language and using a different type of technology, it is more of a stretch to do. So I guess there's different personalities, there's different use cases, and I think it is super interesting. What do you think is one of the big misconceptions about these chatbots? What do you hear people saying that you think actually that's not quite right? Because you clearly understand this stuff on a deeper level.
There are quite a few different things. Maybe the most basic thing right now, which I think is changing, is the fact that in people's minds, there's still, in some people's minds, for example, ChatGPT is still a fancy autocomplete. Their mental model for what ChatGPT is a fancy autocomplete, which means it just produces the next plausible word. Yeah. Which is, in some sense, it is correct, but right now, you mentioned the example of ChatGPT replacing Google. It's moved past that to the point right now they're reasoning engines, which means that they can think for much longer and they can use tools. This aspect of, I think, LLMs being able to use tools is a thing that sometimes gets missed, in the sense that you can have an LLM, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask a question, and if your question is complex, you can sit there seeing ChatGPT having some thoughts, going back to the web.
When you look at the list of what it's done, it's incredible. You know, a lot of those things are things that I would have done anyway, and a lot of those things are things I didn't think to do. And I can't search every website simultaneously and gather it and produce a succinct answer. And I think that that deep research to me is incredible, because I like to use things that I wouldn't have been able to do before. And I'm not a researcher. I don't really have the attention to detail. I don't have the experience of producing a paper and referencing where I found it from. But obviously I like to use research to my advantage. So seeing these kind of deep research and how that works. And I remember using ChatGPT before it could search the internet. And it was using data from 6 months ago or 12 months ago. And that was astonishing to me at the time. When it started saying, well, I'll go off and I'll check the scores in real time and I'll tell you what's actually happened 5 minutes ago, then I was like, okay, I mean, this is crazy. And I'm used to having staff. I've always built businesses. I'm used to having people that work for me. And I feel like ChatGPT is one of my employees. And I value my employees deeply. And I think you're right, what you said, is that the role that they play will change, as the role that I play as the CEO will change. But there are some things that are just unrepeatable by a human, which is that I can work with my employee at midnight, at 1 a.m, at 2 a.m. I can ask it to do things. I can get it to help me ask the right questions, and then to be able to do multiple things at the same time. So I can do all of these things, and at the same time, I'm doing all of those things. To say that I feel it's made me more productive would be a huge understatement. Maybe let's just go back a minute and talk about how you ended up in AI. Is this something that's we just figured out that we're almost exactly the same age or a few months apart? So I guess we sort of grew up in a digital revolution, really. What sort of drawn you to artificial intelligence, and is that really what your skill is, or is that you applying something to this technology that's just so obvious to you or so unique? Or there's a lot of questions there, but
so I did computer science, and to be honest with you, the way I got into AI was a bit more obvious to me. I wasn't really believing if I go back to 2013, 2014, 2015, I wouldn't have expected what's going on right now. The amount of changes and advancements that have happened in the last 15 years were unimaginable.
Surprised you as much as anyone else?
Yeah. But what got me was the fact that, to be honest with you, I liked math, and AI was, at the time, probably the most math-heavy subject of computer science, just because of what, like, for example, you mentioned earlier, the idea of a sample. There is machine learning is statistical learning, which means that the machine learns by seeing patterns. So this is effectively what got me to it, and then things got wild over the next 10 years.
I'd definitely like to spend a bit more time talking about how you automate a mortgage application, because I think that's super interesting and should resonate with some of the audience. But on a selfish level, I want to kind of extract as much from you as I can. Just before we do that, what, in the knowledge that you recognise it's gone a lot further and a lot faster than you could have imagined, what can you imagine the next 5 years looks like? Or 1 year, or 10 years, or whatever kind of springs to mind?
Yeah. So I think we'll be doing everything through an assistant. For example, there are so many ways to think of LLMs, and one way to think of them is as a browser. So the deep research agent.
I've tried.
You've tried Comet?
Yeah,
I haven't tried
Comet. And now you can have an add-on for Claude in Chrome, which is the same sort of thing.
How did you find Comet?
I think because I've seen what the next step is first, which is just go off and do it for me.
Yeah.
I don't think having the assistant sort of reviewing it's genius. Don't get me wrong. I really like Perplexity. I think it's an amazing tool, and I think one of the reasons that it's just opened my eyes. The first time I thought, okay, Google might lose, was when I saw Perplexity. Now, over time, I've sort of understood more that Google is a behemoth. It does more than just search, and they do search extremely well, and they could literally swallow up Perplexity in a heartbeat. I'll be surprised if they don't. I know there's a lot of talk that they may or they might. But it's interesting. I mean, look, and I have an incredible assistant. Her name is Lynn, my executive assistant, and I rely on her extremely heavily. I call her Lynn GPT. But for me to have an assistant, because my mind is always wandering off in different directions, to have an assistant to assist with my thinking, but also to make sure I don't miss things, to write it down, to put it in a format, to ask for help, and to monitor that gets done and report back to me. Like I need, I have a real kind of need to want to use this technology to my advantage. I think it's super cool. In short, I think it's obvious, as you were saying, an assistant. Immediately my head, I want you to answer the question, but immediately my head goes to the robot. We talk about an assistant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not clear whether having a robot to do human things is as obvious as it seems at the moment. Like spending that much time to mimic the human hand feels wrong to me for whatever reason, but I understand why. There are, I'm very fortunate. I don't do manual labour. I don't have the need necessarily to get something else to physically do those things for me. I really want help with my brain. I want to accept where I'm weakest and level up as quick and as hard as I can. But robot, I guess when you say assistant, I think, physical assistant makes a lot of sense as well. So let's stay on the kind of what you hope or expect in what period of time.
So I think on the consumer side, like the assistant example being on like an LLM will keep growing. I think robots will be massive. From a research perspective, it hasn't been cracked in the same way. Sure. With LLMs, you almost know that if you spend $1 billion on pre-training an LLM, you'll get something really strong on the other side. So you almost know how to scale it. But with robots, you have different research ideas. And I'm not in the space, but I follow it, and I don't think it has yet which idea will convert, will scale.
I think the inadequacies are more prevalent in a robot. So you kind of know if your model's hallucinating, that it's kind of silly. But if it's, a physical robot's doing something that you weren't expecting, that could be, traumatic or, devastating. So I kind of get, but it is coming. It's not even like super intelligence or AGI, if anybody can even describe what it is. But being able to go to the shops, get my stuff, put it in the fridge, chuck it in the bin when it's off, make me a sandwich, mow the lawn, pick up my kids from school, like this stuff's definitely coming in my lifetime. I'm absolutely convinced.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned super intelligence, and I think that's also interesting. It won't be on the consumer side.
Yeah.
But for example, last July, both the OpenAI LLMs and the Google Gemini as well, they got a gold medal on the IMO, the International Math Olympiad. Now that's really hard. Like
sure.
The exams there.
Yeah.
I was sort of trying to, going into the Greek competitions when I was a student. They're hard problems. These are not sort of.
And they're unique problems as well. They're not problems that you can learn and then copy.
And they got gold. They got a gold medal.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean solving everything.
Sure.
But it seems pretty obvious if you scale this 5 years later, 10 years later, that AI will be doing scientific research. And this is where things get interesting and wild, in the sense that if that's happening, if you can have AI doing scientific research, then it almost becomes the most precious thing you can own, the most important thing a country can own or an institution can own, because having a stronger model will mean more fundamental research in biology, more fundamental research in other topics. So this is where the concept of the intelligence explosion comes in.
Do you see a world where things look extremely different, with universal basic wage and people not having to go to work and get paid, having much more free time? I mean, are these things kind of obvious to you, or what's your view there?
No, I don't know how things. This sounds very plausible as happening, but I guess what's interesting, I can see different things happening, but I think what's really interesting, if we just zoom out a bit, is that these things are AI is changing the world. It's already changed the world, but it's not happening with a vision, in the sense that there is no almost vision of how our society will look like in 10 years from now. Not even from the companies who create the products. They create the products because they sell them. They sell them. And this is the way the world changed. So it's just interesting, maybe looking back. People looking back at this time, a century from now, will be going,
why weren't you doing this?
Yeah.
When that was so close, and you're building hands for robots that could fold washing. Yeah, I mean, look, it is super. Genuinely, I could talk about this for hours, and I hope that we are able to continue the conversation. What would you like then, the vision to? So you talked about sort of scientific research. It feels obvious to me that we've got a much better chance of curing cancer now than we ever have done before. I think we've got a better chance of understanding the universe, dark matter, the age of the universe, the things that we can't see that fill the space that we live in. These sort of fascinating questions that I think almost people don't spend enough time thinking about it, because it's just too hard to comprehend. I mean, quite often now, I say more than ever, I sort of look up and think we're actually spinning endlessly on a ball of rock in eternal space. Like, it is hard to comprehend. I mean, what would you like the purpose to be? Like, what would you like these companies to be thinking about the future? And I guess the next question is, because of your unique perspective, why aren't you doing that? And why are you building automated mortgage applications, which, with the best will in the world, when you zoom out and we're all just ants crawling around on a ball of rock, how is that meaningful? If that's a fair question.
That's a hard one. I think I'll answer the question. I just want to zoom out and go back to what you said in the beginning, which is, so there are all those great things that LLMs can do, and you said in the beginning, what are the strengths or weaknesses? We were talking about how sometimes ChatGPT can fail. So right now, this is not the world we're in the sense that this is the other thing that's really interesting from LLMs, is the fact that you can have this magnificent capabilities like winning a gold medal at the Math Olympiad that makes us think about all of those things. And then sometimes they're so frustratingly bad. Yeah. So you have this imbalance right now that sometimes,
which is why it's not super intelligence or AGI. It's just not.
No.
You know, if you can't remember the thing that I've had to remind you 3 times, you go, oh yeah, whoops, sorry, I did. Then whoopie-doo, you can get a gold at the Math Olympics, but how's that going to help in day-to-day life?
Exactly. So this is, I think, where also specialist AI comes in, from the perspective that, so you have these models that make us think that research will be done this way, that, you know, will solve the massive scientific problems, and I agree that they will do. And then they have big failure points when you use them, and they won't remember what you told them 2 minutes earlier. So this is the point where, if you take a model like this, you need to be very sure and have a lot of control about it before you apply it on a process. And if that process is mortgages, if that process is research, if that process is you know, building robots or any type of application, that there is still a lot of work to be done to actually automate it and be able to resolve it at scale. So so I think from that perspective, the problems are the same across different fields. So the main problem, I would say, be it in mortgages or be it in research, is how do we get these LLMs to be reliable?
Yeah, I think two things where I think, I mean, I think education, because I didn't fit in well with the sort of natural form of education. I feel like education reform is obvious with AI. So I've got 4 children, and they all learn and consume things in completely different ways. And my 7, nearly 8-year-old, we've kind of got used to putting ChatGPT on the table and putting it into study mode, and you know, it can help him more than I can. It's more patient, it's more informed. Do you see, I guess, other areas where it's obvious that this should be used more, but it hasn't adopted yet? And like the medical profession as well. I know ChatGPT 5, I would say, felt to me like the whole launch was around, you know, consulting your medical history and with ChatGPT. Are there other things like that that you think are obvious, or what's the best use case for the public of a large language model?
I think I would say what I do, I think it's whatever comes into your mind, or whatever, I'll tell you what I do, is whatever comes into my mind, whatever question I have, is it a general knowledge question? Is it trying to understand some weird edge case in taxation or whatever? I go onto LLMs and see what they can do.
What's your go-to?
I use Gemini a lot,
and
I use ChatGPT a lot, and I use Claude for coding.
Yeah.
But I think it's changing so quickly
Gemini doesn't have the same memory capability, does it? Doesn't feel to me like it does.
Interesting.
Whereas ChatGPT, I've built my own custom GPTs. I've been trying loads of stuff out. I've got DKAI is my own custom GPT, and I'm doing deep research on myself about specific things, and then telling it to use these things, because it's helpful to. My brain's not always on. I forget things that someone goes, oh no, oh yeah, obvious, I knew that. So I want to kind of eliminate those things.
Do you ever write anything without using ChatGPT as part of the process in some way?
Rarely now. I mean, I would say I'm a heavy user of, I will screenshot and consult with ChatGPT before I ask anybody else. I just want to get a little bit further ahead. And, very, very limited amount of things I would do without doing it with or after doing it with ChatGPT. And I don't understand why anyone would. And I remember talking to my son, going back to the education, my 11-year-old, and saying, don't ever pretend this is your work, but use this to your advantage and make sure everybody knows you have. So at the time, he'd had a talk about AI, and we wrote a letter together to his teacher about what he'd learned, and in that letter we said, I'm writing this on, and I think that's the bit where people go, oh, it's cheating. It's not cheating. If I can write a good email, I'm actually competent and very comfortable with my own language. Would I want to make it better? Fuck yes, I want to make it better. I don't want to be repetitive. I want better punctuation. I don't want to highlight something more that detracts from the issue. So yeah, I use it myself. Sometimes I'll write a whole email and think it's probably okay. I might just let it go out. It doesn't mean as much, but I would say 9 times out of 10 I'll say sense check. Spelling's never been my strong point. I'm more of a numbers guy than I'm a letters guy. For me to send an email out with a spelling mistake, I think is unforgivable now, unless my attitude is I don't care. Yeah. If you read a spelling mistake. And there's this whole thing about please excuse any typos because I'm sending this from my phone that people would have put. I'd be like, I'm using my phone to my advantage, so you shouldn't have any typos.
I think what's surprising, well, not surprising, but what's really interesting is that people actually enjoy. I think people enjoy using LLMs and AI. There is this paper, or it's in the news. So many people, especially younger people, use it for therapy.
Sure.
So they go and all types of. This is something that I'm not doing.
Me neither, but I know a lot of people that do.
There are so many people who do this. And the other day, something else we've done at Qube is we've launched a voice agent. So that's basically, let's say, an LLM that can talk. And when you call up Empowered is the
mortgage lending.
It's the mortgage lender. So people actually, brokers, and it's broker only. So brokers call Empowered to get answers to criteria questions. And the first entry point is this voice agent. So I was listening to this call. I was surprised, to be honest with you, a few days ago, where there was a broker who was talking to this agent for 7 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
And it was one set
Nothing
of questions.
about the mortgage.
I think if you ask it questions about the outside of mortgages, it'll tell you I can't answer this question. Yeah. But people genuinely enjoy interacting with AI, and for example, that broker got value because it was also out of hours, and she got answers to her questions. Yeah.
I mean, you should never have. I'm sorry, you're held in a queue. Your call is important to us. You'll be. I mean, that's just. I mean, that to me screams we don't have enough employees to do the job that we say that we're going to do.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, training an entire call center on the intricacies of, just talking about my own business, of our policies and our procedures and our collections and our extensions and the monthly charging rate in advance, and like people aren't going to know this stuff intimately. They shouldn't have to. Being able to get an accurate answer quickly is valuable for everyone. Super interesting.
But what's interesting, that even that, like we talked earlier about AI taking people's jobs.
Yeah.
So what somebody might think is, oh, Empowered put this voice agent, and it's now automated. Let's say, from a big picture
Robot.
level, yeah, it's automated people's jobs, which is the work that you need to get something like that. To work at scale and to work reliably is a lot of work.
Sure.
In the sense that you need to know very well the type of questions your people ask. So what actually is happening at Empowered is that my team set it up, and then it's the broker support team who is managing the agent. So they are the ones who keep improving it over time by retraining it, and we've made it easy for that to happen. So it's an example of
where the humans are required to do a slightly different job.
Exactly.
Instead of talking to the individual, they're informing the agent why they could have done better, and that's an iterative process and should continue, but not forever. It's a difficult sell. What I would say is, I think two things. Firstly, I want our business to be able to quadruple in size with the same amount of people. That doesn't mean people. That means people aren't losing their jobs, but it does mean more people aren't getting jobs. Number two, which is really important to me, is I want people to be able to play to their strengths. And I want highly skilled people to be using their skills for really important items. And what I don't want is 50% of my job is doing something that a robot could do better, just because I don't want to lose my job. If taking an email and populating the platform and issuing a set of terms can be done quicker and more accurately, nobody wants to spend their life I don't think they should want to spend their life transposing emails, because you get issues, errors, mistakes, and then it's the blame game of why didn't you do this, and is it my fault or is it your fault, and how can we, so it just cuts out so much nonsense. I'd be interested to just talk for a minute about maybe super high level, what is the underwriting agent able to do that a normal underwriter can do, and what's it doing that a typical underwriter wouldn't be doing, that doesn't have the power to, or even the isn't even being asked to do?
Yeah, so I'll start with the second one. It's basically in production, but it doesn't make actions.
Yeah.
So an underwriter can trigger actions, can obviously make a decision on the case. So we have the agent deployed in sort of a sandbox where it's reviewing all the cases, but it can't interact with anything, with the cases themselves. So that's what it can't do. But then what it's effectively doing is it's looking at the entire case, and then it's underwriting it in English.
Does it even
obviously
need to get the pay slips anymore, or does it use open banking to look at your spending habits, and you would know? Because I even think reading a credit report, training a model to read a credit report is a bit backwards.
Yeah.
Training a model to go and find out what's the chances that this person can pay their mortgage based on if they pay their mortgage already, if they still go to work, where they got a pay slip from last month, have they been on the train, do they go to the bakery, to the coffee shop nearby, is it capable of doing all these things already? Is it doing that?
For the agent itself, all these things are just different tools. So if there is a case where there are pay slips, it can look at the pay slips. This is where the concept of the MCP server comes into play, which is, what's an MCP server? It's tooling that the agent can use to do the things that you ask it to do. If it has access to open banking, it can just pull it from there. So it's effectively some it's effectively an LLM that can interact with every part of Origo, which is MQbe's origination platform, which is what other lenders are now using, Nottingham, Monmouthshire. So that's MQbe's platform, and the agent is deployed within that ecosystem. And that's the interesting thing, that if you think about this, sure, there is the LLM aspect and the intelligence aspect and training the LLM to use the tools correctly. But what's equally important, maybe it's more important in the end, is actually the tooling that it has access to. So it's an agent deployed within an ecosystem that has all the right tooling for it to do the job.
It's basically what an old API kind of would have been like in a way.
Yeah.
But the way I see it is, as a business, we should have an agent in the finance department, in the marketing department, in the collections department. Some stuff they can do better, some stuff they can't do better yet.
Yeah.
But to assist, that assistant, as you said, like go off and find, before I take this call and I start to research, go find everything out and report back. So when this call comes, I'm way more informed. Super interesting subject. Is there anything you want to ask me? Last few minutes. Is there anything springs to mind you'd like to ask me before we wrap up? And then if you're happy to, I'd love to continue the conversation sometime.
Well, one question that just came, I've got a couple of questions.
Shoot.
One that came to my mind is, you just mentioned collections.
Yes.
And I've just been seeing lots of companies in the US using voice agents to do collections.
Yes.
So I just wonder whether you would be using that ever in your business, for example.
I want different people need to be communicated with in different ways at different times for different reasons. I like some people, as you quite rightly said, and I understand why, feel more comfortable talking to an agent out of hours, can't read, can't write, something obscure that doesn't require somebody badgering me in the same way. There's a lot of mindset shifting that needs to happen. Like at the moment, I've gone through phases of how I handle sales calls. Sometimes they really piss me off and sometimes they work. And I think as these things get better, if an agent can call me as a borrower and say, something's happened on your car finance, but don't worry, I can fix it super quick, then and that benefits me, then as a consumer, I'm all for that. If this person's calling me day and night and I've already done what they're trying to tell me, then I'm dead against that. So it's got to be right. From my personal views, as a lender, collections is super important to us because our book needs to perform. We have someone to report to. But as a borrower, collections is super important to me as well. I have recently broke down on a French motorway in my car at midnight. And I found out that my roadside assistance and actually my manufacturer's warranty had ended 4 weeks ago. And I was, effectively, don't cry for me, but stranded at midnight on a French motorway without any roadside assistance and, worried about my warranty. I didn't want that to happen. I would have paid to extend my warranty. I have done on every other car I've had before. The manufacturer is saying, we sent you an email on this date. I've got emails from the manufacturer on that day about marketing and other crap, but I don't have that email. And they're saying, well, we're not honouring it. And to be honest, I don't really care. They can do what they want if that's the rules they want to stand by. But they should have wanted me to extend, and I wanted to extend. So somewhere this has broken down. All I really want to happen is I had the right chance to do that. And them sending me one email isn't adequate. And it would be the same for collections. If somebody had rung and said, it's automated, but your warranty's about to expire, I can see you always drive in Europe, be careful, I probably wouldn't have missed it. So it just depends on which lens you look through. Another question?
Well, in what other ways you're using, so you mentioned, we talked about collections.
Yeah.
How are you using it in marketing, or how are you using AI in
So we're developing it all the time. I mean, things you can do at the moment is you can analyse a valuation report into a one-page report that checks that valuation fits policy, that you've got the right comparables, that the valuer's a certain distance from the property, that they physically inspected it, it's the right amount of pictures, the sizing. It's sort of doing a health check to make sure this isn't a complete waste of an underwriter's time to read it all. Spelling mistakes, punctuation mistakes, date errors, just make sure that this is something that we can use to our advantage. It's taking inquiries and pre-populating the platform, because we want to capture every inquiry in the platform so that I can learn from where are inquiries coming from, through what medium, how many of them fit, are we asking the right questions. So I'm very focused on the data part because I have a big vision for the business and I want to innovate in the knowledge of real information and not anybody's gut feeling. We have a comprehensive checklist of information that we need to get through in order to complete a loan. So I can now, certain elements of the checklist, and more's coming online every day, I can send the agent off to check company's house and make sure that the company matches, the directors match, the accounts are up to date, something that our underwriters would have had to do before. Or automated AML and KYC, making sure that we get back enough green ticks that we don't need to do enhanced due diligence. And what I want to do is really three things. I want to use it to my advantage to win more business, so sales and marketing. I want to be able to risk score a case instantly or as quickly as physically possible. And I want to build a feedback loop that says this happened on a case and therefore you should do this differently at the time of origination. So with AI in mind, those are the kind of three things I'm focused on. I'm a bit grey about what's AI and what's automation, and I think a lot of people are. But I've tried to I can do more comprehensive research on a property than a valuer can do in 2 weeks. Because they've got to go out, measure it, check, come back, type it up, sign it off, and I'm waiting for it. It's cost £1,500. But I can do a deep research on all of the planning, the local community, what's going on instantly, and decide whether it's a waste of my time or my client's time and money before we do that. So everything, basically.
Sounds like a good use case for Qube's agent.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to compare notes. Like from my point of view, we're always very open. Tab is all about trust and transparency, and you don't build trust by keeping things to yourself. My entrepreneurial spirit has always been, let me push everything out and see where I can get some help. And not to say, what I don't understand is I've got a good idea, but I'm not ready to tell you what it is yet.
Yeah, and I think we share the same philosophy, like meeting you today and seeing how we've talked about different things. So
yeah.
It almost feels that we're applying the same philosophy in slightly different ways. So
it's been a pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much
I'm sure
for
we'll do it again
me.
sometime.
Thank you.
Thank you.